All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going deep, microscopic deep, to talk about three tiny terrors. These little curve-shaped bacteria have had a massive impact on our world, our history, and our health.
So, let me ask you this. Pandemics, undercooked chicken, and stomach ulcers. What on earth could they all have in common? I know, it sounds like a weird riddle, right? A massive plague, a simple kitchen mistake, and this nagging stomach problem. But believe it or not, there's a single hidden thread that ties them all together. And the answer is, they're all caused by a group of related, kind of curve-shaped bacteria. Yep, the mastermind behind all three is a different bug from the same family, a family known for its weird spiral or curved shape. So let's get into it, and we're going to start with the one that literally redrew maps and changed societies.
First up, we've got Vibrio. You can think of this one as the OG, the pandemic pioneer.
So what exactly is Vibrio? Well, at its heart, it's a type of bacteria that scientists call gram-negative. That just has to do with its cell wall. The important thing to know is that it loves aquatic environments, especially salt water, and it's got this signature curved shape. Now, there are a ton of species out there, but we're going to zero in on the three troublemakers for humans, especially the most infamous one of all, Vibrio cholerae.
7. What do you think this number means? It's the number of global cholera pandemics that have ripped across the world since the 1800s. Just let that sink in. 7. 7 separate, devastating waves of disease, all from this one tiny organism. It's just a huge reminder of the kind of impact we're talking about here.
And if you look at this timeline, you'll see cholera isn't just some dusty historical disease. The seventh pandemic, which started all the way back in 1961, is technically still ongoing. We still see these horrible outbreaks flaring up today, especially after natural disasters or in conflict zones. You might remember the huge one in Haiti after the earthquake in 2010.
So how does this thing get around? Well, that's the key, isn't it? It's almost always through contaminated food and water. Often, and there's no nice way to say this, contaminated by feces from someone who's already sick. And that's exactly why it absolutely thrives in places with poor sanitation. It makes it a constant, terrible threat whenever disaster strikes. But not all Vibrio are created equal. The one that causes cholera has some nasty cousins. You've got Vibrio parahemolyticus, which you might get from undercooked shellfish. That's a pretty common cause of food poisoning. And then there's Vibrio vulnificus, which is, well, it's really bad news. It can cause these awful skin infections if you have a cut and go in seawater, or you can get it from eating raw oysters.
Okay, let's switch gears. For our second bacterium, we're leaving the oceans and heading somewhere a lot closer to home, your kitchen. Let's talk about Campylobacter, the kitchen intruder.
The name itself, Campylobacter, literally just means curved rod. Pretty straightforward. Now, these bacteria love to hang out in the digestive tracts of animals, where they're usually totally harmless to their host. But for us humans, the two main species, C. jejuni from poultry and C. coli from pigs, yeah, they're not so harmless.
And here's the number one thing you need to know. The main way people get infected, it's something that happens all the time. Eating raw or undercooked poultry. Simple as that. It's a classic example of a bug jumping from an animal to a person.
Now, getting a Campylobacter infection isn't just about a bad stomach bug for a few days. For some people, the fallout can be way more serious and can last a long, long time. We're talking about triggering some really serious complications after the initial infection is gone. Things like reactive arthritis, irritable bowel syndrome, and even a really rare but scary neurological condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome.
All right, on to our third and final tiny terror. This one's story is like a medical mystery that took decades to solve. We're talking about Helicobacter, the bacteria that was finally unmasked as the true cause of most stomach ulcers.
You see, for years and years, doctors were convinced that ulcers were caused by stress and spicy food. But these two researchers in Australia, Barry Marshall and Robin Warren, they had a different idea. They thought it was a bacterium. And to prove their point, Marshall did something absolutely wild. He drank a beaker full of the bacterium himself, got sick, and then cured himself with antibiotics. Talk about dedication. It was a game changer, and it won them the Nobel Prize.
Get ready for this number because it's pretty mind-blowing. Roughly half, 50% of the entire world's population is infected with Helicobacter pylori. Now, most of them will never have any symptoms, but just think about that. 1 out of every 2 people you know is carrying this thing. It's got to be one of the most successful human pathogens out there.
So you might be wondering, how in the world does this bacterium survive in the stomach? It's a vat of acid. Well, it has this incredible survival strategy. First, it burrows deep into the stomach's protective mucus lining. Then, it produces an enzyme called urease, which basically creates a little non-acidic force field around it. And its spiral shape is perfect for corkscrewing its way through that lining. The problem is, this whole process causes chronic inflammation. And that inflammation is what leads to gastritis, ulcers, and even a higher risk of stomach cancer. It's so serious, in fact, that the World Health Organization actually classifies H. pylori as a top-tier carcinogen, right up there with things like asbestos and smoking.
So how do doctors even find this sneaky little intruder? Well, there are a few clever ways. The easy ones are non-invasive. There's a breath test that can actually detect that urease enzyme it makes, or tests that look for signs of it in your stool or blood. But for the gold standard, the most definitive diagnosis, they might need to do an endoscopy. That's where they can go in and take a tiny tissue sample directly from your stomach lining to check.
Okay, so we've met the pandemic pioneer, the kitchen intruder, and the ulcer culprit. Let's pull it all together now and talk about our uneasy relationship with these microbes.
This right here is really the key takeaway, the cheat sheet for everything we've talked about. It puts our three villains side by side. With Vibrio, the big fight is all about public health, safe water, proper sanitation. With Campylobacter, it's much more personal. It's on us in the kitchen to handle our food correctly. And with Helicobacter, well, that one's a bit more complicated, but it all comes down to general hygiene.
And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? From causing global pandemics that sweep across oceans to just hiding out on our kitchen counters, these tiny organisms have a truly massive and often invisible impact on our health.
So knowing all this about our invisible enemies, how does that change the way you see the world around you? It really makes you think, right? When you realize that these microscopic forces are shaping everything from the water you drink to the chicken you cook, it just gives you a whole new perspective. It's a powerful reminder that our health is tangled up with this invisible world, and the first step to staying safe is just understanding it. Thanks for joining me.